Hi, I'm Elisa. So, my last video, I said that I wouldn't get my testing results for when I went in for neuropsychological testing until the 2nd of February, so this coming Monday. But she ended up calling me and told me that she was done early, and so she went ahead and just was able to do it like a week earlier, which was really nice because I was like, good, now I won't have to sit here and think for a week about like what are the results going to show. Um, But there was also a part of me that was like, uh-oh, is this like in court when the jury deliberates, but they come back so quickly that you're like, okay, either they just really decided that that person was guilty or they're innocent. We don't know. So it could be an either or situation. And I was like, so it could be the same thing. Either she's like, I had a cancellation or I was able to get to your stuff sooner, or she's like, you have so much going on that we need to tell you what's going on now instead of making you wait a whole nother week. But that was all in my head. So it was really like an either or. Um, but so anyway, so she scheduled the appointment. It was at 6:15, but then I saw I missed a call from her at like 5:58. And so then that sent me into a bit of a panic because I was like, wait, did she say 6 or 6:15? And so I started like second guessing myself a whole bunch and looking in my calendar and I was like, no, I wrote down 6:15. And then I tried calling their office, but the office was already closed because it was nighttime. And I was just like, okay, well, I guess now I have to wait until next week. But then she called me at like 6:20 and the person who was before me, like they were running late. And so that's why she tried to call me earlier. But so it was just much ado about nothing. Um, so anyways, she was like, yeah, she went over the findings and she said that she had done multiple tests for all of this stuff. But she said, like, so I originally was trying to kind of, I thought, debunk my bipolar diagnosis because the more research I was doing, I was like, wait, is some of this just explained through ADHD and maybe I don't have bipolar? And so I didn't know. And so I just wanted to kind of find out what was going on exactly in my head because some of the things that then were explained possibly by bipolar or by ADHD, but then there was still a bunch of other stuff going on, like some sensory sensitivities and different things like that that weren't explained by anything. Um, so anyway, so in my findings, she said that I meet the criteria for autism spectrum disorder level 1, for ADHD combined presentation, for bipolar disorder 2, for generalized anxiety disorder, and for obsessive compulsive disorder. Um, so after she told me that, she, was asking if I had any questions or anything like that, but then she just said that her recommendation would be to find a therapist whose focus is OCD. So she said it's just a very specialized field that I need to look into, because she said that that is really going to help me with not only some of the like things that I struggle with OCD, like my catastrophizing and my rumination, but also things that come up that she sees like through my autism. Um, and a first part of me was like, or yeah, at first a part of me was kind of like, okay, well, I've spent months doing my research on this, like watching videos, creating charts, like diagrams, all kinds of stuff just to try and like get to the bottom of what's going on in my head. And so it was really nice to be validated. And I thanked her for that. I told her, it was nice to not feel like I was dismissed, but that, someone actually like took the time to dig in a little bit deeper. Um, Though I will say, I walked out of there with some notes and I was like, okay, if you were to redo this again, or like if they were to, like, I would suggest that they ask some more like follow-up questions because they asked, for instance, like, oh, are you working right now? No, I'm not. Okay, well, what were you doing? Well, I was a teacher. And that was like the end of it, but it didn't get into like, well, I was a teacher and then I was a teacher before that and then I was in the Air Force and then I was, so it's like there's a whole bunch more that's kind of like under the surface that if they would have like scratched just a little bit deeper they could have found, but whatever, she came to the conclusion without all that. But so yeah, so now it's really I'm plan to just kind of research because I love to research research how all of this is connected. And because a lot of it kind of seems like possibly some of it came to be, or that maybe having undiagnosed autism for 45 years kind of brought about some of these, like the anxieties and all of this kind of stuff that it'll be interesting to sort of like get to the bottom of. Um, and I don't really know if, like, through therapies, which I'll have to do more research, but I don't know if it's like, okay, for, like, for instance, we know if you have autism, right? If you have bipolar, you have bipolar. But if you have OCD, do you have OCD? Or is it like you can go and like get treatment and then like you don't have OCD as much because you've like worked through some of these like triggers or these like obsessions and compulsions? I don't know how that works. I guess that'll be why I should see an OCD specialist. But anyway, so my next thing besides kind of finding those therapists are going to be I bought these poster boards and I'd really been wanting to do this anyways, and now that I kind of have the results, it'll make it better. But I wanted to on the poster board have my husband draw like the brain. And and then I want to, for the brain, kind of like label all of the parts and start digging into how each of these like disorders are affected in the brain. And so I can kind of see some overlap. So, for instance, just doing like a little bit of research last night, I was finding that people with autism, that there's like a 10% or 10 times more likelihood of developing bipolar. And so it's just interesting because they have a lot of like genetic and neurological similarities with them that overlap. And so yeah, so it'll just be interesting, I think, to have this poster board where it maps out my brain and how it's all working together, just so I can kind of like see it better. And then and then I don't know what I'm going to do from there. But I have been working on kind of like unmasking in the sense of like just paying attention to what I actually need or want and not just trying to like appease everybody. And, or even little things like, okay, I have, I'll listen to my music and then maybe I'll like turn my music off. And so I just keep my headphones on because it's nice sometimes to have everything muted just a little bit. Um, or just paying attention to like my sensory sensitivities, or like we went to Disney World and I was kind of struggling there and just kind of paying attention to what I actually needed to help me kind of like regulate my nervous system has been really important. And so I plan to just keep doing that and keep learning and digging into it, and like I said, finding how it's all related to each other. And yeah, so I'm curious to see if anyone else like has done this or has found that they also have like the same um meet the same criteria that I do, and what your experience is like. But all right, I look forward to hearing from you. Thanks. Bye.